Have you ever wondered why some people struggle with reading, even when they are clearly intelligent and hardworking? The answer might lie in a condition called dyslexia. But what is dyslexia, and why is it so complex to define? Dyslexia is a neurodevelopmental condition that primarily affects reading and related language-based processing skills. The International Dyslexia Association defines dyslexia as a specific learning disability that is neurobiological in origin, characterized by difficulties with accurate and/or fluent word recognition, and by poor spelling and decoding abilities. It is not linked to intelligence, motivation, or sensory impairments, yet it can have profound impact on academic achievement and self-esteem if not properly addressed. Understanding dyslexia, however, is complex. One reason is that the definition varies across discipline and countries. But here's the thing. Dyslexia isn't just about seeing letters backward. That's a myth. The reality is far more complex. Researchers still debate its exact definition because dyslexia can affect people in different ways. Some struggle with phonological awareness or the ability to recognize sound structures in words, while others face challenges with processing speed, working memory, and even motor coordination. To truly understand dyslexia, it is helpful to use a model that looks beyond just reading difficulties and explores multiple layers of influence. One such framework is the causal modeling framework developed by Morton and Fritz in 1995. This model helps us examine dyslexia from 4 interrelated levels. The first one is the behavioral level. At this level, we look at observable symptoms such as those that we see in classroom. For students with dyslexia, this includes difficulty with decoding, poor phonological awareness, or slow and inaccurate reading. These behavioral signs are what prompts teachers or parents to notice a learning difficulty. However, what we see on the surface is only part of the story. The second one is the cognitive level. Here we ask, what mental processes are not functioning as expected? Research suggests that dyslexia have difficulties with phonological processing or manipulating sound in words, working memory and processing speed, and automatic word recognition. These cognitive challenges explain why the reading and spelling difficulties occur. The third one is the biological level. This level considers the neurological and genetic basis of dyslexia. There are differences in brain structure or function, like reduced activity in the left temporal parietal region of the brain. Brain imaging studies have shown that individuals with dyslexia often have atypical neural activation patterns in the areas of the brain responsible for language processing. There is also evidence that dyslexia runs in the families, suggesting a genetic component. The fourth one is the environmental level. Finally, we must also consider the context, or the environment around the learner. This includes access to early intervention, quality of literacy instruction, socio-economic factors, and attitudes of teachers and peers. Even when student has cognitive and biological risk factors, a supportive environment can make a significant difference in outcome. What makes Morton and Fritz framework so powerful is that it reminds us that dyslexia is not just a single-issue condition. It is multidimensional, with interacting causes at the biological, cognitive, and environmental levels, all expressed through behavior. This layered perspective reinforces the need for comprehensive assessment and personalized support rather than one-size-fits-all labels or assumptions. So how is dyslexia actually diagnosed? Unlike a blood test or an X-ray, identifying dyslexia requires a careful evaluation of a person's learning history, cognitive strength, and challenges. Let's break it down. According to the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, 5th edition, or DSM-5, dyslexia falls under specific learning disorder, or SLD, with impairment in reading. This includes difficulties with word reading accuracy, reading rate or fluency, and reading comprehension. To be diagnosed, the key criteria include: number 1, persistent difficulties in reading accuracy, speed, or comprehension. Second, skills significantly below what's expected for age, despite adequate intelligence and schooling. Third is the early onset with symptoms appearing in school-age years. And 4, is not better explained by other conditions like vision problems or lack of instructions. Diagnosis isn't just about checking boxes. It is a multi-step process involving educational assessment. This is the standardized reading, spelling, and writing test. Next is cognitive testing, which evaluates phonological processing, memory, and rapid naming. And the third one is the rule outs. This ensures that difficulties aren't due to hearing loss, ADHD, or inadequate teaching. Critically, clinicians also gather real-world evidence, such as teacher reports, family history, since dyslexia is often genetic, and observations of how someone responds to interventions. Early diagnosis is key, but adults can be assessed too. Why is it important to support people with dyslexia? It is because without the right adjustment, a bright student might struggle unnecessarily, not because they cannot learn, but because the system isn't designed for how they learn. Thankfully, laws and policies exist to ensure fair access to education. In many countries, including Australia, teachers are legally required to make reasonable adjustments under the Disability Standards for Education, or DSC 2005. This adjustment could include extra time for reading tasks, access to audiobooks or speech-to-text software, modified assessments that focus on knowledge rather than reading speed. These requirements stem from broader legislation, like the Disability Discrimination Act, which makes it illegal for schools to treat students with disabilities, including dyslexia, less favorably. The Disability Standards for Education then spells out exactly what school must do to comply. Schools also follow the National Consistent Collection of Data, which tracks how they support students with disabilities. This isn't just paperwork. It ensures funding reaches those who need it and holds institutions accountable. When these adjustments are in place, something amazing happens. Students with dyslexia thrive. They are not fixed. They are enabled. And that's not just good teaching. It is the law. How dyslexia affects students. Dyslexia doesn't just make reading difficult. It shapes how students experience learning, often in ways that aren't obvious at first glance. So what does dyslexia actually look like in the classroom? While every student is unique, dyslexia often exhibits phonological difficulties or trouble breaking words into sounds. For example, confusing B and D or struggling with rhyming, slow, labored reading, or taking longer to decode words, leading to fatigue. Poor spelling or unpredictable errors like writing night as in N-I-T-E instead of night, N-I-G-H-T. Working memory overload or forgetting instructions or losing place in text. There are also hidden struggles. Dyslexia isn't just about letters. It can also affect processing speed, needing more time to understand written or spoken information, executive function, or difficulty organizing thoughts for writing or managing multi-step tasks, and anxiety and self-esteem. Many students internalize struggles as being dumb, despite having average or high intelligence. However, individuals with dyslexia may also exhibit strengths and compensatory skills. Here's the twist. Dyslexic brains often develop remarkable strengths, like big picture thinking or spotting patterns others miss, creativity and problem solving, or out-of-the-box innovation. And they also have verbal reasoning or strong oral communication when writing isn't required. The key here is recognizing these profiles early with the right support like audiobooks, speech-to-text technology, or explicit phonics instruction. Many students with dyslexia don't just cope, but they excel. But what is the best approach to support students with dyslexia? Here are some reasonable adjustments that could be made and that would support the students with dyslexia. Number 1 is technology as a game changer. Tech tools can bridge the gap between ability and task demands. These are text-to-speech software, or the apps that let students hear text instead of struggling to decode it. The speech-to-text apps, or the ones that helps those who think faster than they write. And the digital organizers that support memory and task management. Even mobile phones can help. Apps like Speechify or Clara's CanPen turn printed text into audio instantly with no special equipment needed. Another adjustment that could be made is in the classroom and assessment. Small changes make a big difference. Extra time of 25 to 50 or more on test to compensate for slow reading. Oral alternatives, letting students answer verbally or use diagrams. Dyslexia-friendly fonts and colored overlays to reduce visual stress. Incorporating explicit teaching strategies is another reasonable adjustment. Proven instructional methods include multisensory learning, like combining sight, sound, and touch. Example is tracing letters in sand while saying sounds. Structured literacy programs, like systematic phonics instructions. And chunking tasks or breaking assignments into smaller steps to avoid overload. Critically, these adjustments aren't cheating. They are leveling the playing field. Under the Disability Standard for Education, schools must provide them unless it is unreasonable, and technology makes that easier than ever. Dyslexia isn't a barrier to success. It is a different way of thinking. With early diagnosis and right tools and inclusive teaching, students with dyslexia don't just keep up, they lead. From text-to-speech tech to create problem-solving, their strengths reshape what is possible. By embracing reasonable adjustments, we are not just following laws like the DDA or DSE, but we are unlocking potentials. Because when schools adapt, dyslexic minds excel. Let us not rethink dyslexia as disability, but a different ability. Together, we can turn struggles into strength.